The world remembers her as a saint of joy, a woman with flaming red hair, wide, innocent eyes, and a mouth always ready to erupt into the kind of laughter that shook 44 million American homes every night. Lucille Ball. The name is synonymous with happiness. But that is the 20th century's greatest lie. Look closer at those eyes. That isn't the gaze of a comedian. That is the gaze of a wounded animal, performing tricks for survival. Behind the clumsy, lovable Lucy Ricardo stood a woman carrying psychological fractures so deep they threatened to swallow her whole. A child raised by death, a wife driven to paranoia by betrayal, and a mother willing to strangle her own child's happiness to protect a crumbling legacy. She wasn't born to laugh. She laughed to hide the terrifying truth that if the spotlight ever went out, the darkness would consume her instantly. This is not a comedy. This is the slow-burn tragedy of a woman who sold her soul for fame, only to realize the price was eternal isolation. Fate stole Lucille's innocence before she could even speak it. It was 1915. Her father, Henry Ball, died of typhoid fever at 27. But what haunted the 3-year-old Lucille wasn't just the absence of a father, it was the sound. In the deathly silence of that house, she remembers one thing vividly: the sound of sparrows pecking against the window pane. Tap, tap, tap. To a toddler's mind, that wasn't nature. That was the knock of the grim reaper. This trauma birthed a lifelong, crippling ornithophobia, fear of birds. Even as the Queen of Hollywood, Lucille refused to stay in any hotel room with bird-patterned wallpaper. To her, wings were not a symbol of freedom. They were the harbingers of destruction. The universe wasn't finished. At age 12, a backyard target practice turned her life into a living hell. A stray bullet paralyzed a neighborhood boy. The ensuing lawsuit stripped her family of everything: their money, their home, their dignity. Lucille was thrown from stability into the gutter of poverty and shame. She learned her first brutal lesson: one careless second is all it takes for the world to devour you. Then, her own body betrayed her. Her teenage years were stolen by acute rheumatoid arthritis, leaving her bedridden for nearly 2 years. 2 years staring at a ceiling. 2 years imprisoned in her own flesh. But in that dead silence, a monster awakened: the will to survive. She swore she would never be invisible again. She would shine, even if she had to bleed to do it. Hollywood in the 1930 seconds was a meat grinder, and it did not want Lucille Ball. She was expelled from drama school with a cruel epitaph: too shy, no talent. But she didn't quit. She mutated. She dyed her hair. She learned to walk on high heels like a predator stalking prey, masking the terrified girl from Jamestown. Yet, Hollywood only saw her as the Queen of the Bees. She was cast as the cheap secretary, the loud friend, the faces you forget the moment you leave the theater. Then, in 1942, a twist occurred that no screenwriter would dare invent because it was too absurd. Lucille began hearing clicking sounds coming from her own mouth. The FBI investigated and uncovered a reality stranger than fiction. Her temporary dental fillings were accidentally picking up high-frequency radio waves from a secret Japanese spy station operating in California. A B-list actress had become a human radio tower. The press laughed, but underneath the anecdote lies a dark metaphor for her life. She was always a vessel, channeling signals she couldn't control, living at the center of a chaotic frequency. On the set of Too Many Girls, destiny handed her the most potent drug of her life: Desi Arnaz. Desi, a 3-year-old Cuban bandleader, 6 years her junior, with eyes that held the promise of sin and a past steeped in darkness, his father had taken him to a brothel at age 12 to make him a man. Lucille, the white, aspiring starlet, fell for this immigrant force of nature instantly. It wasn't a fairy tale romance. It was the collision of two volatile chemicals. They married 6 months later, and the nightmare began. Desi was the embodiment of the wildness Lucille craved, but he was also her tormentor: alcohol, gambling, and women. For Desi, fidelity was an abstract concept. Lucille responded with manic jealousy, smashing furniture, screaming matches, and nights spent weeping in a cold, empty mansion. But Lucille was a control freak. She devised a desperate, insane plan. If I cannot keep him at home, I will chain him to me through work. Thus, I Love Lucy was born. It wasn't created for art. It wasn't created for money. It was a prison cell built out of cameras and scripts, a desperate attempt to force a cheating husband to play the role of a loving one. The success of I Love Lucy was a violent slap in the face to CBS executives who had forbidden the show, claiming America would never accept a mixed marriage. Lucille and Desi gambled everything, mortgaged their sanity, and built Desilu Productions. When the episode of Lucille giving birth to little Ricky aired, 44 million people watched, more than the inauguration of President Eisenhower. She became the most powerful woman in America. But the higher you climb, the thinner the air. In 1953, at the height of the Red Scare, a ghost from her past emerged. Lucille was accused of registering as a communist in 1936. The headlines screamed treason. The Queen of Television, a Red? Her career stood on the guillotine. In that moment of terror, Desi Arnaz, the philandering husband, delivered the greatest performance of his life. Before a live studio audience, he walked out, looked the crowd in the eye, and declared, "The only thing red about Lucy is her hair. And even that is fake." The laughter saved her. But deep down, the incident planted a cold seed of realization in Lucille's gut. This fame is fragile, the public love is fickle, and the man who saved her tonight would be in another woman's bed tomorrow. By 1960, the curtain fell. On screen, Lucy and Ricky were still the perfect couple. Off-screen, Desi was drowning in liquor and public sex scandals. Lucille, the woman of steel, had reached her breaking point. The day after filming the final episode, she filed for divorce. In the court documents, she used a single, chilling word to describe her life with the man she worshipped: nightmare. She didn't just leave him, she erased him. She bought out Desi's share of Desilu, transforming from a wife into the first female head of a major Hollywood studio. She was ruthless. She greenlit Star Trek and Mission: Impossible. She was rich beyond measure. But when she returned to her sprawling Beverly Hills estate, she was met with a deafening silence. She married Gary Morton, later a second-rate comedian, a safe choice simply to have a warm body to listen to her breathe at night. Gary brought peace, but he was a shadow. He could never ignite the fire that Desi had burned into her soul. As she aged, Lucille's need for control curdled into something toxic. The breaking point came in 1970. Her son, Desi Jr., only 17, began an affair with Patty Duke, an Oscar winner with a chaotic reputation. When Patty became pregnant, the tabloids exploded, claiming the child was Desi Jr.'s. Lucille Ball, America's mom, reacted like a tyrant. She viewed Patty not as a person, but as a stain on the Ball Arnaz brand. She threatened to disown her son, to cut him out of the will, to destroy him if he didn't leave her. The cruelty she displayed was terrifying. Behind the clown's smile was a mother willing to crush her child's heart to keep the image pristine. By the 1,980 seconds, the decline was visible. She tried to return with Life with Lucy, 1,986. It was a catastrophe. The audience didn't laugh. They pitied her. They saw an old woman trying to force a youth that was long dead. The show was canceled after 8 episodes. It was a mortal wound. Lucille retreated into the shadows, spending her days watching old reruns of I Love Lucy, living in a black-and-white past where she was still loved. Desi Arnaz was dying of lung cancer. The war was over. Lucille picked up the phone. In those final moments, there was no anger, no divorce papers, no business deals. Lucille whispered, her voice trembling, "I love you, I love you, I love you." Desi, fighting for every breath, replied, "I love you too, honey." 2 days later, Desi died. Lucille did not attend the funeral. She couldn't bear the reality. She was found sitting alone in her dining room, staring at a wedding photo, gripping it until her knuckles turned white. 3 years later, on the 26th of April, 1989, Lucille Ball's heart, the heart that had endured the death of a father, the betrayal of a husband, and the weight of a nation's expectations, finally exploded. Literally. She suffered a dissecting aortic aneurysm. She died in pain, but in silence. No canned laughter played her out, just the sterile beep of a monitor in a white room. What did Lucille Ball leave behind? A television empire? Yes. Technical innovations? Yes. But her true legacy is a brutal lesson on the cost of laughter. She was the woman who taught America how to laugh, but she forgot how to be happy. She used comedy as mortar to fill the cracks in her soul, applying layer after layer until the mask became so heavy she could no longer find the woman beneath it. Whenever you turn on the TV and hear the laughter in those old sitcoms, remember, you are hearing the echoes of ghosts. And the loudest laugh belongs to Lucille Ball, the woman who died 1,000 deaths in her heart before her body finally gave up.